Hello. I'm getting my act together here and going live on all these different places. Here I am there, and I better turn off my phone. I haven't done this for a while, so kind of getting back in the swing of it. Just bear with me for a second. And for those of you that are live on Facebook, that is the best place to see your comments and to answer any questions. Yes, there I am. This is never and hasn't been anyway. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. This has never been like a real easy thing for me to do these podcasts. I used to have a really major fear of public speaking. And so doing them, it's always a process. And I'm figuring it all out as I go. But I'm supposed to be doing them because Spirit keeps telling me this is what you're supposed to do. So here we are. And thank you for joining me. So I want to start by saying I have been out of here for a few weeks, kind of a couple months. And I've had a lot going on that I wanted to share with you. And some things you might be surprised about. And some of it I'm kind of being a little vulnerable in sharing. You know, I think people think because we're therapists, because we do what we do, that our lives are just like we keep figuring it out as we go and it's always great. And kind of honestly, a lot of the time we live in a good place, but there's also these moments. So right before the fires happened in the Palisades, and I got to say, I'm just still in prayer for those people. I mean, it's a lot that they've been dealing with. And it's not just the people that lost their home, it's a whole community. And it's still in need of prayer and in good, solid attention. And there's so many things that are going on with regard to the zoning and regulations and things that are a struggle. So continued prayers for you all, and not just in the Palisades, but also in the northern area as well. And kind of honestly, there's just a lot going on in the world. So it's one of those moments where prayer is good for you and it's good for everyone. So I'm going to get a little bit more into that later. But right around the time of the fires, I got sick. And I was sick for about 10 weeks. And it was a little bit, I was here and I was having a bad cough. And it was just a process my body was going through. And it was, let's just say, uncomfortable and not easy. And by the way, for those of you that come in live, if you could comment and let me know that you're here, it's always a great thing for me to see your name in there. So during that time, I don't go and shout it out to the rooftops that I'm sick to everybody. I usually just will tell Nick or my holistic practitioners. They knew. In fact, Dr. Nancy Sachs, my doctor, I went in to see her and she looked at me at one moment. She was like, "Oh my gosh, your lungs are just filled with bacteria." It's like, you never want to have your doctor look at you like that, but I think she needed to because I needed to take it seriously. So she put me on a really good protocol. And my friend Gary Stewart, he came to visit and Spirit told him to get me mullein. So if you're ever having a lot of phlegm in your chest and in your system, mullein is a great thing to take. It's a natural supplement and it helps to eliminate the hard bacteria and keep the good bacteria. And it is that thing that really turned things around for me. So thank you again, my dear friend Gary Stewart. We had a good time. He came to visit and we went to the beach together. And he's one that you want to look up. He's doing amazing things in the world. And I really want to take a minute and shout him out. Gary is an ambassador for the Children's Health Defense. And it's an organization that Bobby Kennedy started. And Gary also, he just does so many things. He's got a new book that's going to be coming out about AI. We're going to be getting into a little bit of that subject today too. So if you're ever interested, just look him up. You can just go to Gary Stewart, and he's got all these different books. We had him here for the propaganda syndrome, and that was, I think, a really great show. And it really talks about how much propaganda, how many lies are being told to us on a regular basis, and how to look for them and how to be consciously, discerning when it comes to things like that. So look up Gary, and that's the shout out for him. And so now I'm back to healthy again. And also in that time, I had a project that I was doing. And before I get to the project, I want to give another shout out. And it's to my husband, Nick Newmont. On next week, on the 11th, we will have been married 25 years. I don't even know how that happened. I don't even know how we went through 25 years so fast, raising our daughters and doing our business together and having fun and working through the challenges. You don't just get to 25 years and still be in love just by accident. There's been many times where we've had to really own our constructive communication in the process and really, look at our own behavior and, make those adjustments and realign ourselves. So happy anniversary to my husband. I'm looking forward. We're going off on a little adventure together, and I'm very excited to get away. So I will not be here next week, but I'll be back the week after. So I love you, honey, because he might be watching at some point. And now I want to get into one of the first topics of the night. And it's one of those things that I was saying earlier, being a little vulnerable. I think I've talked about it on the show before, but I want to go through a bit of a story for you. When we're looking at our lives, when I'm working with my clients, there's a process that you're doing. And in the process, you're really looking at your belief systems, what you hold as true, what you believe about yourself, what you believe about your environment, what you believe about everything, because your perceptions, your beliefs, they create your reality. And so in the process of all of this, in my own life, there was this incredible moment when I realized that I was actually not stupid and I was intelligent, that I am intelligent. I've talked about it before, but I'm going to bring it up now again for a reason. In my childhood, in the 0 to 8, when we're taking on the program of who we are, I took on a program that I wasn't very smart. My mother said things like, yeah, she's cute, but not that smart, the dumb one. And in my book, I have a picture with her handwriting. She wrote these letters to my father, and she said all these things. So at this point, I don't blame her. It's literally not even about her. She took on beliefs from her mother, and her mother took on beliefs from her mother, and it kind of got passed down the line. My family came from an origin where men were more important. And, when I came in, this flighty little girl, she just took it upon herself to put these labels on, as people do. There's another label that I was lazy, another label, that I was somewhat flighty, so when I'm going to tell you this story, I want you to really understand those belief systems. And so what I want to talk about is my book that I just put out in December. It has been the thing in my life, or one of the most major things in my life, that has been quite the learning process. So I became a practitioner, a spiritual practitioner, and then I became a hypnotherapist. And along the way, I studied a lot of science with really excellent teachers like Greg Braden, Bruce Lipton, Deepak Chopra, Joe Dispenza. Lynn McTaggart, all of these amazing people. And I understood at a point in the science, learning that I am intelligent. And so when I would work with my clients, when I became a hypnotherapist and I started working with clients, I would write notes and I would draw pictures and diagrams because I knew in my own mind that had I learned the way that I share with my clients, that I would have not taken 10 years to straighten myself out when I started working with a therapist a very long time ago. Barbara Pavlo is her name. And I worked with her for a year. And during that year, it was a real interesting time. I had to really look at myself on a very deep level. And it was because I needed to be a better person, a better mother for my daughter. Things were looking like a real disaster. And I love her enough. I loved her so much that I wanted to be a better person. So during that year, I really studied a lot and I looked at so many things and gained a lot of understanding, but was far from really straightening myself out. And when I say it took me 10 years, I'm not kidding. It was like a lot. I went all the way through agape and didn't really get my intelligence, didn't get that click of how it is to own your power. And then I went through all the time with the Hypnosis Motivation Institute. And again, really didn't click in exactly what my power looked like. And then when I started studying the science, there was this magical moment where it was like, oh my God, I'm not stupid. I'm actually highly intelligent. And I have something that is powerful that moves through me as me. And it was just this miracle. So as I'm working with my clients, I would talk to them about these things and I would make notes. Well, those notes turned into a workbook that I share with all my clients. I just had a new one today and gave him my workbook. And I put all of this information into a real user-friendly format. So fast forward a little bit, I get this feeling because spirit doesn't really talk to me like in voices a lot of the time. Sometimes it does, but it kept being this thing like, you need to write a book. I don't know. I think I've read them all and I think they've all been written. I don't really think I need to do that. And it was like, yeah, you do. And so one thing led to another and I wrote that book. And can I just say, it took a long time. It took 13 years, and it wasn't 13 years straight. It was a lot of working on it at first, and I kind of had two books put into one. And I had one person, hey, I want to read your book. And when they read it, they were like, Audrey, it seems like there's two books here. And I started looking at it from a new perception, and it was like, you're right. I need to divide them up. So it turned into the mind trip game. And you're taking a road trip. And throughout the book, I was able to really define the book to that theme. And then the next book is the other half of that book. And I've already got it in my head. And it's a same kind of a format. It's all the same tools, but it's designed for gamers. There's a lot of you gamers out there. And when my clients come in who are gamers, they get it. And it's like, oh, ... And it's like, yes, connect all those dots and there you go. So I separate those two books out and then I put it all together and I got a self-publishing company. And in my mind, when you're paying a lot of money like that and you're paying for editing and all of that, it's like, great, I have a publishing company and now I have support. So I'm writing this book and the support came in the form of they would do it like in Microsoft Word and they would put things in the comments. You might want to do this. You might want to do that. And so I'm doing this and I'm doing that and I'm figuring all these things out. And I'm thinking, I'd like to talk to somebody. And they're like, no, this is the way we do it. And it's like, okay. And mind you, this is a few years ago. And so as I'm writing it, it's just frustrating because, like, at one point in the comments came, well, it just goes from this to that. And it was like, yeah, it's going from this to that because in between is the picture that tells the story. And they said, well, we don't see the picture. And I was like, how do you not see the picture? Is it in a whole separate file? Can't you look at it all at one place? And they're like, no, we can't. And I'm like, well, what the heck is this? And I was pretty upset about it, angry about it. But again, you're not talking with anybody. So I was just like, all right, I'm just going to move forward. And so it's this going back and forth in these comments, and life is happening. We all went through the lovely moment of everything that we went through. You know, it's 2020 was a disaster for so many people, and Nick and I went into overdrive with everything. So there was still more writing that went on. And I'm getting to the point where it's like, this thing has to be done. And so I decided I'm going to make it a finished thing. And they were like, are you sure this is finished? And I was like, yes, I'm pretty sure it looks good. And they're like, well, the resolution on your pictures isn't good. I was like, it's okay. I don't think it's going to be that big of a disaster. It isn't great. But that's not the bigger issue. The bigger issue is when they said, are you complete? I was like, you know what? I'll take one last look at it. And so I put it through my Microsoft Word, which had a new version of Microsoft Word Editor, which was basically AI. So I put it through, and there were all these errors. Now, mind you, this is supposed to be them editing it. And I'm looking at all these errors, and it was out of 100, it was like 83. So I went through yet again, and I'm telling you, in massive frustration. And I am editing it, changing like where the quotes are in the period and different things like that. And I got it to a 98 over 100. And I thought, all right, these things that they're saying, it's the way I talk. So, okay, it's just the way I talk. And if it's not grammatically okay, it's all right. It's my personality and it's how I roll. So then I said it's complete. And the book went out into the world, and it was published in December. And I'm wildly thrilled about it. And even at that point, I never really sat down and reread the whole thing because at that point I'd had enough. I didn't want to write the thing in the first place. And so fast forward, Spirit's like, you need to do something else. And I was like, really? You know, what is this? And I got this inspiration to take the book and make it an Audible book with video. So I'm reading it, and you can see the pages on the side. So that's a whole process in itself. And I am telling you, you're talking about wildly frustrating, especially that first day, trial and error. I had to delete a few of the chapters. It was just a lot of a learning curve. And so then I finally got into the rhythm of it. And if you're interested, you can go into Conscious Mind Tripping on YouTube, and there is a playlist where it's a podcast basically, and you can watch. There's 14 episodes, and all of them are around 30 minutes and under. And it's a 98-page book with a lot of pictures, but it's jam-packed full of information that is basically life-changing. I know it's life-changing because my clients use it and they, make their lives better. So as I'm reading this thing, thinking it's a 98 over 100, I'm reading it and it's like, that wasn't written very well. That wasn't right. And then I noticed a few other errors, and there's a couple of times I had to literally redo a whole episode because I was so like, what in the world is going on here? There were all these things that were like not written correctly, but AI wouldn't catch it. Or I said something twice. AI doesn't catch that. So back when they said to me, Audrey, we can't see the pictures. It was very shortly after that I realized, oh my goodness, all this time I was thinking that I was working with somebody. I was literally working with AI, and AI only catches what it catches. So then I'm reading the book out loud. And you probably, if you watch it, you'll see those few moments where I'm like, oh, this is said twice, must be very important, or whatever. So why I'm saying all of this is because there is a part to it where even in all that I do, there's a part where I had a moment where I was like, what in the world? I trusted that this was going to be like a publisher with an editor and I was going to have somebody to talk to. Nobody ever said in the contract that I ever saw that it was all going to be AI. And for that, you know what? I know how to work with AI myself. I could have done it myself. And so it was a huge learning curve. And I had to, just now, as I finished all the rest of these videos, had to really get to that space where it's like, all right, even in my imperfections, I'm still perfectly whole and complete and good to go. So is it the most perfect book ever? No. But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a publisher and I'm going to republish it without those errors, with another set of eyes on it, and having those pictures redone. I was telling my friend the other day, I think it was yesterday, I was like, I can't even believe that I put that whole book out and never had another set of eyes on it other than my own. And so I read it and I had my own set of eyes on it and going, oh my gosh. And I'm telling you, judgment comes up in those moments, frustration, anger, all these different feelings. And I'm no different from anybody else. I have to look at those. I have to be very clear about it and I have to work through them. And I have, and I'm actually pretty solid with it now. So why I bring this up is because in the process of all of this, I had lessons to learn. And one of the big lessons that I've had to learn with all of this, it comes back to having support. And it's an interesting thing because a lot of people have this issue and many of them know it and many do not. So I kept feeling like I'm not supported. And in various ways, I'm not going to go into all the details of how I wasn't supported, but I had to do what I say to do in the book. I had to look at my timeline and I had to look at what is my belief. And some of the belief wasn't even about support, it was about asking. So when I'm looking at my timeline in my 0 to 8, where we all take on our programs, we're taking on those beliefs. My parent, it was one of those, well, my parent, my mother and my stepfather, there was a lot of it where you just didn't ask for things and you didn't accept things as well. Like, for instance, I would be with my brother walking to go to church and people would stop and offer us a ride and we'd be like, nope, we can walk. We don't know. We're good enough to walk. So you didn't, ask for a lot and you didn't expect a lot either. And so that in a lifetime can show up in a lot of different ways. And it has definitely showed up in this process of me writing that book and really owning what I created around it, because in reality, I created everything. I created the whole scenario because there's something for me to learn in it. So why I bring this up is because at this point, I'm really seeing what my kid in the back seat believed about herself with regard to asking and with regard to receiving. And in the process of now redoing that book, there's a part of it where I have been putting it out there where I am asking for support and I'm accepting and receiving graciously and um, with a lot of gratitude. So I put it out there and I got an amazing review for the book. When I went to the Hypnosis Motivation Institute, we had a teacher there, Michelle Guzzi, and she is an amazing hypnotherapist. We've sent people to her, and she's just great. And she just wrote this review that was like off the charts. And I have to say, it was like there was a part of me that was like, wow, you know, it triggered the little kid in the backseat. Ah, do I deserve this? And it was like for a split second, it's like, absolutely. There's a lot of time, effort, love, perseverance, tenacity went into, being present with creating that book. So the point that I'm making is when we have these hard moments, a lot of times we get stuck in them. A lot of times it's like, oh, this is just too much. I shouldn't do it. I don't want to do it. And I'm just going to let it go. But when there's something like that and you truly persevere through it, there is that blessed opportunity to really grow from it and move into that next level of your consciousness. So now, as I'm owning where I'm at with this book, it's very different, the conversation that I have around it, and different what I'm asking. Like one of the people who I put as a quote in the book is Paul Selig. I read his books a lot, and I think he is just amazing, and he channels the guides. And their information that they share just is spot on for the way that I think. And so he had a workshop here a few weeks ago, and I was like, I'm going to see him, and I'm going to be brave, and I'm going to give him my book, and I'm going to have him sign my copy of my book. And that's exactly what I did. And Spirit loves me so much. On that day, I called the girl that was hosting it, and she ended up getting me a front row seat saved. And I got to ask a question. So I asked about my book. And Paul was like, I told him, I said, well, I'm curious if you have anything to share about this book that I just wrote. And by the way, you're in it. And he was like, I'm in it. And then he channeled the guides, and they basically said, you're in the process of this book. You're looking at all the details. What do I have to do? What I have to do? What I have to do? And being in the details of it, they literally said, instead of doing that, you need to like have the book and like wave it around and dance with it and really present it like, hey, I've got this book. I was like, okay. And so at the end of it, I literally danced up to him and handed him the book and said, this one's for you. And I had put a letter in it for him. And so it's not my usual thing to do, to be so bold like that. But again, I'm learning and I'm growing, and I'm really appreciating that part of me that can be that bold, and that part of me that can show up and sit in that front row and ask that question, because it's not my, usual old habits that I would do, or usual thing that I would do. So I want you to think about your own life for a minute and look at, are you asking? Are you comfortable to ask? Maybe are you asking too much? Are you asking what you know you can receive? Or are you asking for things that are kind of out of line? These are all questions when you get yourself in that critical thinking, because there's so much around asking and receiving. And so then you're looking at the other part of it. Am I open to receive? A lot of people, they'll receive a compliment and be like, oh, it's nothing, and they'll almost brush it away. Are you doing that? Or are you receiving a compliment, receiving things that people want to share with you with graciousness, with appreciation? Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So when we have these little things, it's not even that they're so little. they're there. And when you're able to acknowledge them and be with it, it's funny how it goes back to a deeper story. It goes back to that kid in the back seat and not feeling sometimes valuable or feeling worthy. So when you're changing that program and you're like, yes, I'm receiving, thank you so much, and we deserve it, it changes so many things in life. And that part about asking, so many people just don't ask for what they want. On a level, they might be afraid that they might not get it. On a level, they might be afraid they might get it. And then what are they going to do with it? Do they deserve it? So these are things to ponder, things to think about and really look at in your own life. I'm not the only one out there, just saying. And I want to go on to another topic. And this is something that I think is really important for this moment in time. And it's kind of a little bit about what Gary and I talked about, he and I, with regard to AI. I'm 62 at this point, and AI is not something I ever dreamed of. When I was a kid, we were attached to a phone on the wall. So I've been learning as I go to be on the internet, to do all the things that I do. And in the process of all this, I have discovered, like in the writing of my book, oh, that's AI. But then I go into Grok, which is kind of like Chat GPT, and it's a lot of fun. I can say, hey, write a front page for Audrey Newmont for her website. And if you go to my website, audreynewmont.com, and you read that, a lot of it is Grok writing that for me. None of it is inaccurate. It's all true. And it's like having your own publicist. So I was like, well, this works. So I've been using AI to write the descriptions for the classes that we do. I used AI to write the descriptions for the that playlist, the podcast for the book. And so there's all these avenues that AI is great and you can use it. And then there are all these things with AI that are important to be able to discern the difference. As an example, I work with kids, I work with young adults, and across the board, many of them have been using AI to do their homework, to take tests, to do things that they should be learning themselves. And it is really creating a serious problem with that generation. It's not just that on a level they're cheating and they know they're cheating. It's funny because they're cheating, they know that they're cheating, and then they're figuring out how to not get caught in their cheating. And so they're actually being quite brilliant, many of them. This isn't just one person I'm talking about, it's a lot of them, where they're figuring all these things out and they're using their minds to figure out how to do the AI. And like somebody told me recently, it's like, actually, if I had just taken the time to do the homework, that would have been probably easier than figuring out all the things that I had to do to not get caught. And so it's important for whether you are that person that's using AI in a way that is maybe not your best interest, or if you're a parent and you have kids, it's really important to be present with them and have these kind of conversations around what it looks like, where it's okay to use it and where it's not in their best interest. There have been many people, I think, who have posted online. This one girl in particular, I want to say she was like in her early 20s. And she was on maybe late teens, early 20s. And she's on there and she's basically saying that she doesn't know how to read because she has relied on AI to do all of that for her. And aside from the fact that it's very challenging to get by in life when you can't read and you feel nervous if somebody asks you to read something, but it really messes with the confidence. It messes with your self-esteem. And there's a part of it where it's like, you know what? I can't do these things. And so I'm not enough. And in reality, when you take the time to do whatever that is, and you own your ability to do it and not have AI do it for you, there's a lot of empowerment there. Like, for instance, when I'm asking it to write the bio, I'm kind of using it as a publicist, but AI in no way, shape, or form wrote my book. And it's a very unique book. Nobody in the world's written anything like it. And that could never have been written by AI. It was written by spirit. It was literally inspired. There were quite a few things in the book where it just was like, do this. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that game board that I have in my book, that was inspired. All the different pieces in there and putting that puzzle together that is my book, a lot of it was inspired. And AI can't do things like that. But if you're relying on AI, then you don't get to that part where you are inspired. Inspiration flows through you. It's like you put up a roadblock in the way of that. The other thing that is important to recognize with AI, and I've said this before, but it's taken it to the next degree. Many people watch things online and they see what's attached to that thing that they're watching, whether it's a video or looking at a picture or whatever. And then there is whatever is said about it, and they believe that it's true. And in reality, there is a lot that they can do with AI where it's not the person at all. So I want you to see this in kind of a different perception. I was watching a video a few years ago. This was a while ago, and they have greatly improved it even since then. But this video, the guy was, I think, on a TEDx, and he was talking about how AI can do these things. And he had a box with 4 videos on it. There were 4 videos on it, and in those videos was Barack Obama. And they said, because all of them, it looks very much like him, they're all saying the same thing. And they said, which one do you think is the real Barack Obama? So I'm looking at it and it's like, I would go for number 4. And then they answer the question. They said, none of them were. So they have the ability to manipulate our minds in all kinds of ways by putting things out there that seem to be true, that aren't. And so it's a really important time to discern the difference between them, to use our conscious thinking, to really be in that critical thinking where we're asking these questions. So why would they do that? When we're divided, when we're in fear, when we're angry, when we're frustrated, when we are, having a lot of those strong feelings, we're not thinking clearly. When we're divided, we're not working together as a common unity, a community. So it's super important when you're looking at these things and it creates a certain level of anger and rage in particular. That's when you want to step back and look at, is this true? And there's various ways that you can look at something, whether it's true or not. And if it is true, what are you going to do about it? Instead of being angry about it, you want to get into, that's a victim mode. They're doing this. I'm at the effect of it. So when you are in your righteous anger, that's when you are looking at it and it's like, all right, so this is happening. And what am I going to do about it? I'm not a victim to anything. So what do I do with my righteous anger? So in that righteous anger, if you're going out there with anger leading the way, there has to be a purpose for it, for unity, a purpose for it, for the solution. If you're going out there and you're just being angry and you're just venting all of that anger, what's it serving? It's creating more division. So this isn't all a political thing. This goes on so many different avenues. So it's a really, really important time right now to discern the difference. Is this true? Is this AI? Am I being manipulated? Or is this, you know, something that is designed to manipulate me? So when I created this podcast, and it's called Conscious Mind Tripping, you're on a trip all the time. We're tripping every single day. And as we're on the journey, when we're in our fear, false evidence appearing real, and those feelings are strong, those feelings like anxiety, stress, worry, and just all of them, guilt, shame, remorse is huge. All of those feelings literally create an avenue within our body where we're not thinking clearly, and we're subject to manipulation. So when I say conscious mind tripping, there's a part of it, and it's all in my book, when you stop and you look at things with your critical thinking and you're asking those questions: why, when, where, what, how? Is this true? And if it is true, what am I going to do about it? How can I be constructive in this rather than joining in a destructive thing? So it's an important moment in time right now because there is so much happening. I don't know if you've noticed, but many people are wildly stressed out. Nick and I are busier than ever, and there is a lot of dis-ease that's happening. And there's a lot that is, unfortunately, just a struggle. It's a challenge. So that is one of the reasons why I put my book out on Audible. A lot of people don't literally have the time to sit down and read. So when you can listen to a chapter for 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or listen and watch, you can look at the pictures, you're getting the message. And these tools that I'm sharing, they're all designed to put you into that conscious mode, into your power. So when you're reading each chapter, you don't have to pay for them. You don't have to do anything like that. But with all the books that I've read over all these years, actually, I'll tell you a quick little thing. One of the reasons why I decided to read it out loud, this was one of the last podcasts that I did. I was at my my dear friend's funeral, and I was speaking for his wife. And as I spoke, I'm just speaking her words. But people came up to me afterwards and they were like, oh my gosh, that was so powerful. You moved me. And I was like, I just read her words. No, it's the way that you said it, your voice, your soothing, whatever. And then I started thinking about it. And it's like, one of the reasons I like listening to Paul Selig is he has a great voice. And the message is clear and it's pure. So if I wake up in the middle of the night, I'll read one of his books, and it is soothing and it distracts my mind to something that might have been bothering me. And I can fall asleep to it and know it's like great information. So when I put my book on Audible, there's a part to it where, and somebody just wrote to me yesterday, she said, I've been listening to your podcast and your voice is so soothing. Thank you so much. It really helps. And it's like, that's why I did it. That's exactly why I created it. I want people to be having another avenue to put their mind into so it doesn't stay on the loop of whatever the challenge is. I used to do that all the time when I was back when in those 10 years, I would have these bad days and my mind would just go bad. And so I would listen to talk radio because there wasn't these kind of things. It was like early podcast. And I would just distract myself that way. And then books came out on tape. And I'm telling you, I have quite the Audible library. So it has been a source for me over a lot of years. So I wanted to add myself to that source. And for those of us that like things simple, it's a very simple format. I put it into a game. So when you are actually playing the game and you're doing the process of the game, it makes life easier. You start understanding more of why you're where you're at, and more importantly, how to get yourself to where you want to go. So there's a process to do it, and that's what I'm sharing in that book. So you're going to be seeing a lot more of that stuff coming out, and I'm going to be putting out an email probably tomorrow that has much of it in there. So that's what I wanted to share about all of that. So bottom line is, as you're scrolling and you're getting yourself triggered in different areas, there's a point of it where you look at, is this true? Do I know this to be true? And if it is true, what are the solutions for me first? You come first. And what is it that I can do about it? Like my friend Gary Stewart, he's looking at certain things that are happening in the environment in particular, and he's making quite the stir around it. He is owning his word, and he is out there making a difference in the world. Kudos to you, Gary. And when he's doing that, he's in his righteous anger. He's not a victim to anything. So if there is something that's been bothering you, something that is weighing on you, and you think that you have no power to change it, find those people that are like-minded. Join in a common unity, a community of people that will make a difference in something that is to the benefit that for all of humanity. Because we're all in a moment right now. I mean, it is a moment. There's a lot of changes taking place. And truthfully, a lot of it is great. There's a lot of really amazing things happening right now. And so when you're in this moment, you can focus your attention on a lot of things that could be problems. I'll give you an example. I have somebody who, how do I say this anonymously? When the new administration came in, they were like, oh my God, they were terrified that they were going to get arrested and that they would lose their job and that certain things would happen. And here we are later, and none of that has happened. So they were terrified, not knowing 100% of all the truth of what was going on with the administration. And I'm not saying this administration's doing everything right. I don't know that any administration has. But what we have to do is look at what they are doing right. And if there's something that is not working, how do we make that right? How do we make it better? And if there's something that, because here's one that where people will get you. This could happen. If things move forward, this could look like that. And that's what my client was looking at. And it's like, I don't think that's going to happen. But he didn't look at those things until he talked to me. And then it was like, all right, I see where you're coming from. And he calmed down. And he's been on a path ever since of really looking at things differently and owning a new perception with all of it. So when you're looking at these possibilities, many times it's not something that's going to come true. It's designed to bring up fear. So there's a part of it where you step back and say, is this actually happening? Like there's something that just came out recently, and I have a friend of mine who is an expert in the thing, and I called her up. Actually, I called up 3 people who are experts in that. And I said, what do you think about this? Audrey, it looks like this. And all 3 of them said the same thing. And it was basically, wait and see how this plays out, because I don't think that that is the full story. And so that's what we're doing. And as it's playing out, this is the important part. And this friend of mine and I were talking just today. As you're looking at all of this, and you'll see this in the back of the book, you can go straight to that chapter. It's being the MVP in your own game. Owning your meditation, visioning, and prayer. So when we're having a moment where we're not sure, there's a part of it where you go into prayer and you're looking at, this is what I'm seeing right now, and this is the power that I own. This is who I am in that power. And like I do, divine right actions taking place for all humanity. The best and highest is happening for humanity. We are finding the solutions to the poverty. We're finding the solutions to the wars. We're finding the solutions for these people that are in some way, shape, or form being abused. So when you are in prayer, you're talking to that highest part of you. You're talking to this intelligent universe. It's quantum physics, and your heart is producing that appreciation that it's already happening. The answers are happening. The veil is lifting, and we are owning a new society, a new world where the best and highest is happening for humanity. So if you don't know what to do, focus on that. Be an appreciation for anything that you can see that's moving in the right direction. That will move more in the right direction. But when we're in fear, when we're angry, when we're frustrated, when we're literally afraid, you're creating for the other team, whatever that looks like. So if there is a possibility that something horrible is going to happen, you don't know that that's true. You have no idea that it's true at this point. So the more of us that hold it in the prayer and hold it for the best and highest happening for all humanity, we're switching that quantum intelligence. We're hitting a tipping point where the solutions can happen with more ease and more grace. And it's really important in this moment to look at that, because when we're in fear, false evidence appearing real, that is creating in our bodies. And we can't be in fear, we can't be in anxiety and in a healing mode. Our bodies don't work like that. So it's important to really recognize on the road of your life when you're seeing these things come up where it's like, I'm afraid, I'm anxious, I'm worried, I'm stressed. Get into your critical thinking and start looking at, is this true? Probably not yet. So it doesn't have to be true. And when we're owning our power to focus on what we want to be true, there's where we can move. So for, let me see, the next 6 minutes, I want to talk about one more little thing. Across the board, there is a challenge with communication. I have it come up all the time, especially with my new clients. It's like they're angry and suppressed, and they haven't said what it is that they want to say to somebody, and they can't talk to that person. They can't do whatever. There is a chapter that I have on constructive communication. So when you are able to own your word with anybody, there's your power. And instead of suppressing the emotions and having them build up and it turns into something not so attractive, when you own your ability to hold your word for your kid in the backseat, that changes everything. So we're not suppressing it. We're not thinking, nothing works, nothing changes, blah, 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 all these things that we say. You're owning your ability to affect the change. And sometimes it takes a while. Sometimes it takes, I said it this way, didn't quite get through. I need to say it another way. And that didn't get through. There is a way to say it where it gets through, especially when two people appreciate each other, especially when they're in families together. And I get it. Sometimes it takes a while for the communication to happen. That's okay. What happen when it does happen, the important thing is to say it with that compassion for yourself and for the other person. It's always when people are in their unconscious mode. And a lot of times they're unaware that they're unaware. So when you're reading that chapter in the book, there's a format where you're just simply, here's what it is. Here's what you said. Here's what you did. And you're keeping it very basic. And you're saying, when this happened, I feel angry. I feel frustrated. I feel worried, stressed, whatever those things are that happen, or this is the effect that it has. And then the important part, because everything always comes back to intention. What do you want? What's the intention for you with regard to that relationship? What is it you want? What do they want? And how can you make it happen where you're both winning? And so when you're reading that chapter of the book, I wrote that and I put together that format because I used to have a massive issue with letting people know that I was angry with them. And so the first time I said anything about being angry, I literally had a panic attack. So I put that format together because anybody can tell anybody else how they feel about what their actions are. You're not saying you're an ass, you're this, you're that. You're saying, this is what you did. This is what happened. And this is how I feel in this moment. And I love you enough. Can we do this for the future? So that's one of those chapters that you don't have to read the whole book. Just going to that one tool is a life changer. And then having the courage to be brave enough to go to that person and take that deep breath and be like, I'm nervous, but I'm going to tell you this. For many of my clients, I've said, just use my name. Audrey said I have to do this. And then they come back and they're like, wow, it wasn't what I expected at all. So take a test drive with that and let me know how it goes for you. And I think we are just out of time. So thank you so much for joining me. And I'm going to ask that you maybe go in and look at my new playlist there with my book and maybe take one or all of them for a test drive on those videos and share it with your friends. I'm looking to acquire a publisher because I need to redo parts of the book and I want to have an actual person collaborating with me. And I want to have an actual person help to write the second and third book that I have in my head. So if you know any publishers that would like to pick this up, let me know or let them know and we can maybe make that happen. So sharing is always a great thing and I would appreciate it if you did. And also, if you read the book, whether it's on Audible or on the actual book, you can go to audreynewmont.com and there's a page for the book there. I'm looking for reviews because in order to get a publisher, from what I understand, reviews are helpful. So I greatly appreciate a review. And that's my asking for today. So thank you very much for joining me, whether you're live here now, because I don't see what's going on at the moment, or whether you're watching this afterwards. I'm sending you a wave of love and light, and I will be back here again in 2 weeks after our little 25th anniversary adventure. So have a good one. Take good care of yourself and each other, and I will catch up with you very soon. Bye for now.